Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking the ultimate cognitive toolkit. We're going to look at tools designed to help you upgrade how you think, avoid failure, and honestly, make the absolute best decisions of your life.
Have you ever wondered why even the smartest people fall into traps? Like buying things they don't really need or just completely missing obvious solutions sitting right in front of them. We like to think of ourselves as these hyper-rational beings, but the truth is our brains are basically hardwired with cognitive bugs.
Okay, let's dive into this masterclass on logical analysis and explore the exact tools that separate an average mind from an exceptional one. We're covering the flawed human mind, enter the mental model, inversion and avoiding failure, minimizing your future regrets, and finally, adopting the beginner's mind.
Part 1. The flawed human mind. We really have to start by looking at the invisible traps that constantly plague our daily choices. See, most of the time we're operating on what's called System 1. That means we're letting visceral feelings and automatic, intuitive responses completely dictate our actions. But here's the catch. We truly believe we're using careful, analytical System 2 rationality. It's kind of like a car's headlights blinking from high beam to low. We think we're being completely logical, scanning the road miles ahead, when actually our perception of risk lives entirely in the immediate glare of our emotions.
And this brilliantly illustrates why we fall victim to common cognitive traps. Let's look at 3 big ones. First up is anchoring. Imagine a grocer prices peaches at 4 for $1. Suddenly, you buy 4 even if you literally only wanted 1, just because your brain unconsciously anchored to that number. Then there's overconfidence, which researchers actually cite as a leading cause of human error across all industries. And finally, we suffer from functional fixity. This is where we get completely trapped by our default way of seeing things, like literally not being able to see that a box holding tacks could be emptied out and used as a holder to stick a candle to a wall. We just can't see past the box's original function.
Moving on to Part 2. Enter the mental model. So how exactly do we fix this trick-knee of the human brain?
Well, we rely on mental models. Think of these as cognitive simulations or frameworks that help us logically approach complex real-world situations. Instead of just reacting emotionally, a mental model allows your brain to structure information in a way that actually predicts outcomes. It's basically a way to step outside of yourself and view the problem objectively.
Author Peter Hollins views these as a set of distinct cognitive tools. And get this, he notes there are roughly 30 mental tools that differentiate the average mind from the exceptional one. 30! But don't worry, today we're just going to pull 3 of the most highly actionable ones out of the toolbox to sharpen your logical analysis right now.
Which brings us to Part 3, inversion and avoiding failure. Let's look at our first tool and see how this builds a completely different perspective, because we're going to make failure our ultimate goal.
Notice this fascinating anti-goal pivot. The billionaire investor Charlie Munger famously said, "Invert, always invert. Tell me where I'm going to die so I don't go there." I love that. Instead of trying to be brilliantly intelligent, we just try to be consistently not stupid by actively avoiding disaster.
You can apply this right now by conducting what's called a pre-mortem on your next big project. Let's walk through it together. First, define your objective. Next, imagine the project has spectacularly failed, like the absolute worst-case scenario. Then trace it back. Figure out exactly what actions caused that failure. And finally, simply don't do those things. You achieve success by systematically mitigating the things that guarantee failure.
This maps perfectly onto tracking failures to find better solutions. Look at Walter Reed Army Medical Center during the Gulf War. Doctors there were incredibly frustrated, seeing this huge spike in severe eye injuries among soldiers. So they utilized the power of negative thinking and intensely tracked the point of failure. And you know what they realized? It wasn't the nature of the combat causing the issue. It was the style of the protective goggles. The standard issue ones were just too ugly, so soldiers straight up refused to wear them. Once they switched to cooler-looking ballistic eyewear, soldiers actually wore them, and casualties drastically dropped. That right there is inversion in practice.
Part 4. Minimizing your future regrets. But what about personal risk? Let's look at a tool specifically designed for navigating major life transitions.
I want you to imagine projecting yourself to age 80. Picture it. You're sitting peacefully in your rocking chair, looking back on your life. Ask yourself right now, what paths would you most wish you'd explored? What missed opportunities are going to sting the most?
This is the famous 4-step regret minimization framework. It's actually a mental model Jeff Bezos relied heavily on to navigate the incredibly high-stakes decision
of leaving a secure, lucrative career to build Amazon, and later Blue Origin. He used purely logical analysis to overcome his fear. He deduced that he wouldn't regret trying and failing in the internet boom, but he would absolutely regret never trying at all.
So the crucial point is this. When you weigh the lasting pain of a mischance against the temporary, short-term fear of failure, your current choices suddenly become significantly less daunting. You aren't just avoiding risk. You are actively choosing the option that clears away your deepest future regrets. Finally, Part 5, Adopting the Beginner's Mind. Let's look at a model designed to rescue us from the trap of our own expertise.
In Zen philosophy, this is known as Shoshin, or the beginner's mind. It essentially means approaching a challenge with genuine curiosity, holding absolutely no allegiance to initial methods, history, or your own prior expertise. Psychologists actually warn of something called the Einstein-Lunk effect. This is a cognitive trap where being an expert literally creates mental blinders. It prevents you from seeing novel solutions because your brain relies way too heavily on what worked in the past.
To see this in action, just contrast Sony with Honda. Back in the 1980s, Sony had this deep engineering mastery of analog tape, but they were so proud of that specific technology that it totally blinded them to the digital music wave they actually helped invent. They were trapped by their own expertise. Meanwhile, Soichiro Honda held zero allegiance to past methods. When his early piston rings failed quality standards, he didn't lean on his pride. He approached the problem with total humility, like he was seeing it for the very first time, noting that doing nothing through fear of failure completely prevents progress.
So to cultivate this untrapped mind, leaders really need to operate through questions rather than declarations, aggressively challenging their own status quo. Deloitte researchers suggest asking things like, what if my foundational assumptions are completely wrong? What if historical solutions are totally irrelevant now? What if I could wish for anything? And perhaps the absolute toughest one to swallow, what if my harshest critics are actually right?
The key takeaway from Peter Hollins' playbook and all these sources is that exceptional thinking isn't innate. It's a practice. It's about using specific tools to logically interrupt your biases and reframe reality. Whether you're tracking your failures, your dry holes, running project pre-mortems, consulting your 80-year-old self, or constantly asking what if, you are actively engineering better, failure-proof outcomes.
So, as you face your next major crossroads, I want to leave you with this thought. Knowing the invisible traps your brain has already set for you, which mental model will you choose today to outsmart yourself?